Hello and welcome to the Eldon House Drawing Room. My name is Becca and today I have a short video for you discussing this gentleman in the photo right here in front of me. This was Teddy Harris, as he was more commonly known. His full name was Edward Montgomery Harris. He was born right here in London, Ontario, and he grew up in this very house, which is Eldon House. He, along with his siblings Millie and Ronald, spent their childhood and much of their adulthood here, and they were raised by their father George, as well as their mother Lucy. Around the year 1900, George decided to join the military. He was accepted into the British military, and after a short training period in England, he was stationed in India. This would mark the beginning of a very long military career for Teddy, and would also mark his very first injury in the line of duty. While he was there, he injured his knee, and this injury was severe enough that it took many operations and years of rehabilitation in order to remedy. By 1905, Teddy was back in Canada, where he decided to join the Canadian Permanent Army Service Corps as a supply officer. Now, his life would change quite drastically in 1914, as did the lives of many other young men across the globe. On December 11th, 1914, he decided to enlist in World War I. He signed his attestation papers at the age of 34. Under the command of Major Teddy Harris, his unit, which was the 2nd Canadian Divisional Supply Corps, was primarily responsible for delivering supplies and equipment to the front. They were also responsible for rescuing wounded from the battlefield. They took part in many major battles throughout the war, including the Battle of Vimy Ridge, which we'll talk a bit more about in another video because it was of particular significance for Canadian military history. Now, I've already mentioned Teddy's knee injury. Unfortunately, this was not the only ailment that he would suffer throughout his long military career. Going all the way back to the beginning of his military career, while he was still stationed in India, he contracted malaria. Now, while he would overcome this initial illness, it would leave him with long-lasting lung issues. According to his service record, he had a chronic weak chest, and this would present itself as bouts of bronchitis and pneumonia, among other lung ailments. Now, each time this happened, he would be granted medical leave to go and seek health care for this issue. And each time this happened, he would have to come up against a medical review board. And it was this board's job to determine whether or not he was physically fit enough to return to active duty. Now, I will note that Teddy was a very dedicated man. He was dedicated to the war effort and to his job. And each time he came up against this medical review board, his service record states that he insisted on being returned to his men, to his unit. Now, we know also from these service records that he was admitted to a field hospital twice in 1918. Viewing this through our modern lens, we believe he was suffering from PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. However, the view of mental health-related aspects was very lacking in those days, especially where war was concerned. Medical professionals didn't realize the psychological toll that war could take on individuals, on soldiers who had seen horrible things during their battles. So when soldiers presented with things like tremors, nightmares, confusion, or even large-scale emotional disruptions or mood changes, medical professionals at the time believed this was due to what they called shell shock. Rather than a mental health issue, they believed this was a physiological one. They believed that close proximity to exploding artillery shells caused brain damage, which in turn caused these issues. Of course, in the modern era, we now know that this is a mental health-related issue. But back in the day, unfortunately, many soldiers who would return home, like Teddy, would not receive the psychological help they needed and would have long-lasting psychological effects from all the traumas of war. We have a few medals in our collection in the drawing room here that were given to Teddy Harris specifically for his service in World War I. So I'll be talking about those medals next. The first one I'll mention is the Distinguished Service Award, which is here in this vitrine. This was first established in 1883, and as the name suggests, this was granted to soldiers who had distinguished themselves in battle, so who had gone above and beyond the call of duty. Now, which soldiers were eligible for this medal changed a little bit throughout the course of World War I. From 1914 to 1916, soldiers could be eligible for this without actually having seen active battle or being under fire. However, by 1917, this eligibility changed. Now, if you come and take a closer look at this, you'll see that there is a laurel wreath as well as the British crown on the front of it. The next medal I'll be talking about is the cross, and it is in the shape of a cross. This one is a bit more simple. It was awarded to all those who were in active service from 1914 to 1915, and particularly within the dates of August 4th, 1914 to December 31st, 1915. The third one here, kind of the second from the right, is the British Medal. This was awarded specifically to Canadian soldiers who fought during the First World War. On the side facing up here, we can see the profile of King George V, and if you were to look on the reverse side, you would see St. George, who is the patron saint of England. Now lastly here, this one's my favorite and arguably the most interesting. This is the Victory Medal, and this was given again to those who had distinguished themselves in battle. It was given both to military personnel as well as certain civilians who were under contract and medical professionals who helped in theaters of war. Now this was given to around 3,500 Canadians, but the most interesting part, if you look on the top of the medal itself, you'll see an oak leaf bar. This was given to fewer than 6,000 Canadians. So Teddy was one of those select few, which really shows how he went above and beyond and further distinguished himself in the First World War. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. If you find yourself in Eldon House anytime soon, please do come to the drawing room and check out Teddy's medals. If you're interested in World War I history, we'll be doing another video focusing on some other trench art, which I'll explain in that video, which we have in our collection. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more historical content. Until next time, bye.